One of the other destroyers of freedom is apathy. And this is a very important question that needs to be asked while doing the acknowledgement step of shadow work. Do you care enough? So you have to pose the question, do I care enough? Not do I care at all, do I care enough? So apathy is the second great destroyer of human consciousness. It has been said that the statement, I don't care, creates a prison for all of us. In the first stage of shadow work, we must ask ourselves difficult questions such as, have I cared enough to get directly involved in the great work of ending human slavery on earth? Again, have I cared enough? Or have I cared enough about matters of true importance? Or have I focused on selfishness and trivialities? Have I just focused on comfort and pleasure? An example of acknowledgments regarding this dynamic would be, it is true that I have not cared enough to really get involved in the great work. It is true that I have not cared enough to learn technology to the extent that I could assist in the moral education of others, but rather I have simply focused on my own selfishness, on my own creature comforts. Let my care just languish and not actually put skin in the game and get involved. Once again, we could talk about a million different aspects of how people fall short in any areas or endeavors of life. You could see I'm specifically framing this. Like I said in the last section, there is an agenda to this. Whereas I'm posing the really important questions about the really important dynamics. And that's what people have to do with shadow work. This is not about did I put in enough hours, that I made enough for a new car this year. This is about the stuff that is of critical importance at this time in human history. And if we don't care enough to get involved and do what we know to be right and what's required, things are just going to go precipitously off of a cliff. So again, I'm framing the dynamics of what I think should be posed in shadow work to what we really need to focus on. Another question that will lead us to a proper acknowledgement is, do I understand the true causal factors at hand? Do you understand causality enough to know what's truly important and what really needs to be done? Through asking ourselves difficult questions during the first stage of shadow work, we must strive to understand true causal factors for both our own behavior and shortcomings, and the true causal factors for the wider condition of humanity. Without a true grasp of the causation for suffering, we stay disempowered to free ourselves from it. An example of a good acknowledgement regarding this dynamic would be, it is true that I have remained ignorant of the true causal factors for my fear of speaking out publicly. See, maybe you want to analyze, why are you afraid of becoming a public figure? Why are you so afraid of speaking publicly? Why are you afraid of putting that skin in the game? Why are you afraid of, speaking knowledge which you happen to possess? Otherwise, how is it going to propagate? So it is true I have remained ignorant of the true causal factors for my fear of speaking out publicly. Maybe you don't even know why you're afraid. Well, why do you play secret agent man, secret agent woman? Continuing this acknowledgement, this ignorance has led me to remain silent and not engage in the battle for freedom that we all face. How many people even ask themselves questions like this? I wonder whether people it never even enters their mind. Not once. Versus how many people will sit and ask themselves a question like this and then answer it honestly during a shadow work session. Another question that will lead us to proper acknowledgement, have I made an accurate diagnosis of the problem at hand? Have you gathered enough information that you actually know what the problem is and why it's there? Forget right now about what to do to solve it. Have you diagnosed the problem at all in yourself? Diagnostics means the examination and analysis of a particular system in order to arrive at an accurate understanding of what is causing problems for that system. Again, we could be talking about the individual self. We could be talking about all of humanity as the system. Shadow work helps us to gain a correct understanding of ourselves so that we may come to the correct conclusion regarding the cause of specific problems. Shadow work is about troubleshooting. It's about the analysis of causal factors. This is what most people do not do. They look at just external things and are like, oh, that's just something that's happening. No, it's not. It has a cause. Nothing happens without causation. That's how natural law functions. Everything is operating according to law and principles. And if you don't make accurate diagnostics when problems arise, you don't know the causal factors, and you certainly aren't going to know how to solve the problem. Most people stop short of an accurate diagnosis because they have not acquired enough information on root causes for problems. A good example of an acknowledgement regarding this dynamic would be, it is true that I have not correctly diagnosed the relationship between morality and freedom, and so I do not properly understand what I must do to improve the human condition. See, once again, unless we ask the right questions, we're not going to arrive at what we have to acknowledge. And that's the first step of shadow work. It's posing questions and then being ultra honest about our answers and how we are involved regarding those dynamics. And it's not just for selfish reasons. It's for the big picture. This is what I would encourage people to do shadow work-wise. Ask the big picture questions. Like, do I know what the true solution really is? Or do I just think I know? Or am I just comfortable remaining ignorant of what the solution is? Do you really have the key to all of it in hand, to solving human slavery? I know that I do. I don't think that I do. I'm definitively positive about it because there is a real world answer. And it's actually practical, and it's something that you can do something about. It's not something that's unworkable or impossible. Human beings often miss solutions to problems, even when they are right in front of them. This almost always happens due to not having enough information regarding the causal factors in order to make a correct diagnosis. See, that's the step. You get enough information. You actually diagnose the problem according to causal factors, and then you can propose what needs to be done. This ignorance of causal factors and what the solutions are invariably leads to continuing chaos and suffering in all of our lives. But the true solution does exist. But have we developed enough understanding to accept what that solution is? So again, according to the agenda here, folks, here's a good example of an acknowledgement regarding this dynamic. It's true that I've remained ignorant, that the communication of true objective morality is the most important step to ending human slavery. How many people are doing work to actually acknowledge that's the solution? Or how many people are just continuing to float through life? They don't have that knowledge in hand. They don't know what the real solution is, and they're not even asking themselves that question. Hey, you could be really upset that your team lost the championship last year and go through all kinds of diagnostics regarding what the team did wrong. But is that as important as asking how could we end human slavery? And how can you be involved to be a part of that solution? And folks, the answer is readily obvious and available. It's communication and publishing. It's putting information out. Everybody wants to say, oh, I want to do this, or I want to do that, or I want to, tell Mark what solution I think is at hand. And it's like, well, guess what? Put your work out. Get involved in the work. Put the work out into the world. Publish it for all to see widely and freely, and let people partake of your wisdom if you think you know what the solution and the answer is. It doesn't need to be communicated to any one individual. It needs to be put out into the world. So you learn how to do that, and then you do it. How many people on a daily basis write to me, try to call me, try to communicate with me? It's like the answer doesn't have to go through Mark Passio, number one. Number two, stop playing secret agent and go public and put your knowledge out into the world if you think you have something valuable to contribute. That's the real solution. But people are just armchair quarterbacks, or they're just sitting around being lazy, following creature comfort, not actively getting involved on the battlefield. So here's another question to ask during the first stage of shadow work. Am I just fucking lazy? Am I just a lazy person? Have I been lazy because I just want comfort in my life? I don't want the stirring up and shaking up and having to become a public figure and having to learn technology and having to learn how to publish information and sharing what I know and putting myself out there. That's what I've been doing for the last 18 fucking years, going on 19. It's like, when do I get assistance and help and a break and to tag out? Instead of people saying what I should do. Don't worry about what Mark Passio should do. Worry about what you should fucking do. Laziness is the third of the primary destroyers of human consciousness. Not being willing to take action in the face of tyranny and evil is one of the worst offenses a human being can commit karmically. An example of a good acknowledgement one could make regarding laziness is, it is true that I have been lazy, and I have not done nearly what I could have done to slow the advance of tyranny and evil in this world. I have focused solely on my own needs and selfish desires, and I have not been willing to sacrifice my own comfort to do what I know deep down inside of myself to be right. Just read that again and again, if you have to. How many people just pursue pleasure and comfort and never once get involved in any dynamic or any aspect of this work ever? They're sitting back waiting for something that's never going to happen. So imagine if we're just honest and we ask ourselves the question, is it just me and I'm just fucking lazy and I don't want to get involved and go onto the battlefield? I don't want to put myself out there. I want to remain an anonymous coward and an anonymous lazy person. Here's the acknowledgement. Yes, it's true I've been lazy. I haven't done what I could to help people to understand morality and freedom and slow the advance of slavery in this world. I've just focused on my own selfish desires. How many people just sit and acknowledge that and let that be with themselves in their own thoughts? Most people never even consider it. Do I have the willpower to even begin to change? And what are you doing to develop willpower? Lack of willpower goes hand in hand with laziness and is one of the main reasons chaos and suffering remain the status quo, and slavery. In shadow work, we must be willing to be honest with ourselves regarding our own lack of will to change. We must acknowledge that we say that we want better conditions to manifest, but we have not developed the willpower to do what is necessary and required to make those conditions actually manifest in the world. See, it's all about what we're not doing, folks. We're not getting involved in the battlefield. And it's also all about what we continue to do that's wrong. We're not stopping or telling people that they should stop immoral behaviors. An example of a good acknowledgement regarding the dynamic of that you may not have the willpower that you need is you say to yourself while you're looking in that mirror, is it true that I have not developed the willpower to create real change, neither within myself nor in the world as a whole? You have to be willing to take real world common sense right action. This isn't just about wishful thinking or what you want to happen. It's about what are you going to make happen. Do I have the courage to do what I know to be right? Once again, most people want to sit back and be an anonymous coward. How many people go through the length and problem to try to obfuscate their identity? Oh my God. Somebody might know your name online. I mean, you gotta be kidding, people. You really do. And it's sad. I don't want to have to be the guy that's constantly telling people that they're just fucking cowards. I want to be around strong, brave fucking warriors ready to do fucking spiritual battle. Not people who want to hide their name in a fucking internet chat. Cowardice is the fourth of the great destroyers of human consciousness. These are the internal enemies within us. We give in to cowardice when we allow our fear of discomfort and pain to override our will to do what we know to be right. Courage is a basic requirement to speak out against tyranny. And tyranny never just goes away on its own. It's spoken out of existence at some point. And if it has to be, it's fought out of existence. But it starts by being spoken out of existence. And too few people are speaking against tyranny and enslavement in our world. And this is why too few people are speaking out. They lack true courage, and they rarely admit this fact to themselves. So an example of a good acknowledgement in the first step of shadow work, while you're looking at yourself in that mirror and you're asking the question, am I really just a fucking anonymous coward? Ask yourself, do you have the courage of Mark Passio to speak out? Because I guarantee you, in 99.9% of you, the answer is no, you do not. Here's a good acknowledgement. It's true that I have been cowardly. I have not developed the courage to speak out against the unjust conditions that prevail in our world. I've stayed on the sidelines and I have not gotten involved as a direct result of my own lack of courage. How many people will sit there and say that right to their own face, to themselves in the mirror during the acknowledgement phase of shadow work? Hardly any. And if we're not doing that, if we're not doing that as a movement, if we're not doing that as a species, expect more enslavement and death and chaos and destruction, because that's all you're going to get. And I could say that 1 billion times. It could be said a quadrillion fucking times. Until you decide that you're going to come out of that state, nothing's going to change. And we got to do this on a world scale, not just on a few people. And we're nowhere fucking near it at all. Not even close. Not even close. It's paltry and pathetic, the numbers. Another question to ask is, have I attempted to advocate my personal responsibility to do what I know to be right? Most people don't want true responsibility. They want to run away from their responsibilities. They don't want the ability to respond to and correct problems in their lives. They want to just blame it on somebody else, and they want to sit there complaining. They naively believe at a subconscious level that they can remain some sort of a cosmic child and abandon their own personal responsibility to someone else. This is what all of politics and government is. This person will take care of it. They'll solve the problem. I don't need to take any real world action. We'll just vote somebody new in, and they're going to be responsible for all the change that has to happen. Yeah, okay. Yeah. And purple unicorns rain down from the sky on a daily basis. You want to talk about dreaming. You want to talk about just wildly lost in the dynamic of dreaming. That's what that is. People try to pass the buck down the line and externalize their power to others instead of developing their power inwardly. A good acknowledgement regarding this dynamic is, it is true that I have attempted to abdicate my personal responsibility to get involved in the war for freedom. Instead of morally educating my fellow human beings, I've tried to convince myself that such work is for others to do, but not me. I don't want that responsibility. Imagine this. It's pathetic and disgraceful. And people need to look themselves in the mirror and acknowledge their shortcomings regarding this, and that they've been a part of this dynamic instead of being on the true right side of the dynamic. Folks, I told you this was going to be intense and difficult for many people to hear. It's all still true. I haven't said anything that's false. Another question in the acknowledgement stage, ask yourself, have I actually taken right and effective action? Look at the action that I've taken and the amount of time and dedication and total and practically complete sacrifice that it takes to do the type of action to create this content and try to put it out into the world for people to understand. Compare what you're doing to something like that. It should be compared. It's a measuring stick. Most human beings want to sit on the sidelines and imagine life as some type of movie or TV show that they are watching passively on a screen. They take on this mindset because they don't want to sacrifice comfort in their lives in order to take right action. It's far easier to sit on one's ass and watch like a passive observer than it is to get personally involved and put skin in the game and actually do right action by speaking out. Only right action will ever create positive change, no matter how much wishful thinking in which human beings engage. You can engage in all the wishful thinking and all the wishful emotions that there are in the world to partake in, and nothing is going to get accomplished until you actually get on the battlefield and take true right action by trying to morally educate your fellow man and woman. So an example of a good acknowledgement regarding not having taken right action: it's true that I have not engaged in right action with regard to the human condition of slavery. I have definitely not gotten involved to the best of my ability. I have left it all to someone else. That's a good acknowledgement. Sit there, look in your own eyes in the mirror, and say something like that to yourself. And really let it sink the fuck in. That's shadow work, ladies and gentlemen. That's shadow work. Not imagining some nonsense dream in your mind. It's saying, how have you failed? How have you not done what you know you need to be doing? That's shadow work. Some people have to ask themselves even a question as basic as, am I even engaged in any type of right livelihood for the resources that I make? Because I guarantee you there's some people sitting in this group right now that aren't in right livelihood and do work for government in some capacity or some evil entity in some capacity. I guarantee you not everybody that's even listening or watching this is in right livelihood. Most people do not want to admit that if they are employed by an institution or business that initiates violence, coercion, fraud, or other immoral behavior, that they are themselves complicit in that immoral behavior. If you're helping someone conduct immoral behavior, you're complicit in that behavior yourself. So if you're involved in government, if you're involved in the type of horrendous monetary and banking procedures that are going on in the world today, defrauding people of their property and making the world an even worse place to live in. If you're involved in the bureaucracy of government, if you're involved in tax collection, if you're involved in military, if you're involved in police forces, you're not in right livelihood. You're involved in coercion, you're involved in violence, you're involved in fraud, you're involved in immoral behavior. And there's no excuse for it. Most people just want to do their job for a paycheck and rarely even consider or care at all if what they do to earn that paycheck is truly moral or not. They couldn't give a shit less. This is one of the main reasons immorality prevails in our world, and one of the main reasons our freedom is being destroyed and lost. An example of a good acknowledgement regarding the dynamic of right livelihood is it true? It is true that I have not engaged in right livelihood. By continuing to work in a government agency that regularly engages in coercion, I myself have been supporting and enabling violent and immoral behavior. How about even supporting people that are involved in wrong livelihood? Are you the wife of a cop or a soldier? Is one of your parents involved in government? Are you saying anything to them? Are you trying to morally educate them and get them out of being a part of this sick, violent system? No, most people don't want to rock the boat in their families, and so they just shut up about it. They shut up about all the wrong things. They don't open their mouth about the right things. It's all cowardice, folks. And you can't be easy on people who are in wrong livelihood. You got to say it straight out right to their face. Have I followed orders that I should not have? How many people have been a part of these agencies and institutions and have followed orders unquestioningly? Believe me, there's plenty of people within the freedom movement that are either active or past cops and soldiers. And basically that makes them trash as human beings. And they don't even open their mouth about the dynamic. Half of them don't even want people to know they were involved. Order followers are those who have done what they have been commanded to do. That's what an order follower is. Someone who has done what they have been commanded to do through some order giver's command, without first correctly judging for themselves whether or not the action they were ordered to perform is objectively right or wrong. They just remove that discernment from their mind and say, I'm doing this for a paycheck. Whatever you say to do, yes, sir, I'll carry out the order. And there's no bigger piece of trash than that. Living or dead. There's no bigger piece of trash. Get as fucking offended as you want. It will never make the statement untrue. It's true eternally and forever. And definitively exactly true. Any individual who is following orders cannot be exercising conscience, since exercising conscience means willfully choosing for themselves right action over wrong action through their discernment based upon the knowledge, the objective knowledge of the difference between moral versus immoral behavior. You have to first acquire that knowledge and then align your behavior to it. These people aren't doing that. They don't even know the difference between right and wrong, let alone are they willfully discerning and choosing right over wrong. They're choosing evil over what is right just because they make a paycheck doing it. And like I said, you can't get any lower. You can't become any lower fucking scum than that. And then people will say, they'll make excuses for these people saying they're just doing their job. No, they're not. They're making a willful fucking choice to do something that they have no right to do. And that's follow somebody else's commands just because they're making money to do it. When they don't even know or care about whether what they're doing, what they're being ordered to do is right or wrong. They couldn't give any shit less. So you can take my words and shove them up your ass and spin on them. It's still true, nonetheless. These sick, demented order followers have foolishly attempted to abdicate their personal moral responsibility to someone else, saying, oh yeah, it's the order giver. Oh, I don't worry about that. I just do my job. That's the whole fucking problem of this godless fucking world, man. That's the whole fucking problem in a nutshell. Since order followers are the people who actually perform an ordered action with their own body, they are the people who have actually brought harm upon others into physical manifestation, not the order giver. The order giver can't do that unless he uses his body to carry out his own order. Instead, these jackasses follow their orders and then harm other people when they have no right to do so on the command of another. So order followers themselves have ultimately been personally responsible and morally culpable for every form of slavery and every single solitary totalitarian regime that has ever existed upon the face of this earth. Get the fuck offended as you want. It's going to be true eternally and forever. And if you don't understand that that's the dynamic, you're part of the fucking problem. All the assholes out there who say, oh, it's a person giving the orders, it's the politician. You're a smacked ass. A smacked ass if that's what you believe. And I've heard some people that should definitively know better making dumb fucking statements like that. And you know what? It doesn't help anybody. It doesn't advance yourself. It doesn't help anybody else in the world. It doesn't contribute to freedom. You're doing harm. You're doing harm by taking that mentation and not changing it. Here's some more order followers in the medical industry that came out during COVID like rabid beasts. And then people want to say they're not some of the biggest fucking pieces of trash ever to walk the earth. You don't know what you think you know, all the people out there in the so-called medical industry. You're fucking just as ignorant as all the other order-following trash out there. And guess what? I'll say it just as harshly right that. Come and see me, I'll say it right to your fucking face. These are the order followers out there in the world, and there's many more variants of them. And in shadow work, you got to ask yourself, am I just a piece of trash scumbag order follower who just wants to do what I'm ordered to do just so I make fucking money and stay comfortable? Because that's where almost most people are at. They're following some form of orders. They're afraid to speak out. They're afraid to step out of line. They're just fucking scumbag fucking cowards. A good example of a proper acknowledgement regarding order following is this. It is true that I have followed orders that I should not have followed. I have attempted to abdicate my personal responsibility to choose my own actions based on the objective difference between right and wrong under natural law. I have been an immoral person for doing this. Then maybe people can forgive you. But acknowledge that you're a piece of trash first, and then commit to changing from being a piece of trash to being an actual good person. How many people are willing to do that? Not that many. That's why we're in the bad situation that we're in this world. And not that many people will say it straight to them in street language and say it right to their fucking face. You got to get intense about it. You got to say what's true. You got to say what you know to be right. You got to say what you know to be moral. And you got to put it in people's face. You can't just let it slide. Here's a question very few people ever think to ask. Have I actually been involved in poisoning the worldview of others with false ideas? How much do what you have spoken and put out into the world is actually a false worldview and poisons the worldview of other people, especially the young? Sowing falsity and confusion could well be one of the worst things we can ever do. Hey folks, this is why I feel I accrued the most karma that I ever accrued in my entire life. Not because I did violent behaviors, but because I propagated false ideas and poisoned people's worldviews with what I propagated when I was involved in Satanism. That's what brought the most negative karma down upon my spirit and soul and in my life. Worldview poisoning was what I was the most guilty of since I've been alive. And again, in my youth, I did that. And I came out of it fully by the time I was in my late 20s and early 30s. Thank God. Thank God I was able to work on myself to that extent that I stopped poisoning people's minds with completely sick, twisted, demented ideas and worldview poisoning. So when you sow such falsity and confusion, it could be one of the worst things we can ever do because we propagate deception and suppress truth as a result of poisoning other people's worldview. An example of a good acknowledgement regarding worldview poisoning is this. It is true that I have poisoned the worldview of others through my ignorance. See, this is what I had to say when I was doing the shadow work coming out of the satanic mindset. This is one I had to wrestle with continuously. Look at how much I put out into the world that was false and how much damage that is going to do to people's lives. It's true that I have poisoned the worldview of others through my ignorance. I have spread false ideas, and this has resulted in harm to others and has diminished the reception of truth in our world. When you poison the worldview of others, you make it more difficult for them to receive the truth and to heal themselves and to help heal the world. So worldview poisoning is one of the worst offenses that you could possibly do. It's spinning that vicious spider web in the mind and keeping people trapped there. So this is a very powerful and important dynamic that has to be addressed in shadow work. Now, I hope people are seeing how much different my shadow work methodology than anything you've ever previously seen. It is not the same thing. Me and the New Age community, never the twain shall meet. We are not the same in any aspect or respect. They're preaching false clown world spirituality. I'm preaching the real fucking shit is what's happening. Okay? Get the difference, understand the difference, and live the difference. And maybe you'll make some progress in life and help the world. Maybe. And we can go on and on and on and on and on and on and on. You could ask a billion questions. You could go into a billion forms of inadequacy. Again, I'm not here to present every single solitary question that exists and have you analyze one at a time. I'm here to, again, give some examples, whet the appetite, get you to understand. You got to grok the concept. You got to conceptually understand what needs to be done. It isn't about saying that you just write out step 1 and then do step 1 and then write out step 2 and then do that. No, it's about get the concept, folks. The concept is king. You ask the hard questions. You acknowledge the truth about the hard questions to yourself, right to your own face, looking at yourself, and say it aloud. So we can go on and ask all kinds of questions that lead to an acknowledgement of what needs to be focused on and changed. Have I been kind and patient with those who I should have been kind and patient with? Not everybody really deserves kindness and patience. Some people have really earned impatience and getting really up in their mug about something because of how much they've done the wrong thing. But some people do deserve patience. So have I been kind and patient with those who I should have been kind and patient with? We should ask that. Have I used my resources wisely, or have I used them frivolously? Have I been thankful enough for the blessings that I do have? I try to do this one every day. I try to recommit to, I want to express an attitude of gratitude and be thankful for the blessings that I have received. Absolutely. That's one that I have to do every day. Have I complained about others' work while I have put forward nothing? Oh, there's plenty who are guilty of that one. There's plenty who need lots of shadow work about that one. Who think they have every right to complain while they've sat on their lazy fucking ass for the whole life and not put any work out into the world, and then you want to complain? Go fuck yourself. How about that for shadow work? There's your action item. You know, if you want to sit back and complain while you have no work of your own, go fuck yourself. Have I truly listened? Really listened? Instead of just hearing what I want to hear? Because plenty of people are guilty of that one too. They hear what they want to hear. They don't hear what's actually being said because they're poor fucking listeners. Have I actually passed on my knowledge to others to propagate it and keep it alive in the world? There's plenty of people who need to do plenty of shadow work about all these dynamics, folks, and much more. But again, we could go on and on and on. Ultimately, acknowledgement is all about saying to yourself, I was wrong. There's the magic statement. There's the magic decree. That's the magic declaration. You got to get that in your vocabulary, and you got to keep saying it to yourself over and over and over and over and over again. Or you're not making any progress in shadow work or helping anybody, including yourself. The most powerful 3-word phrase we could ever say to ourselves or to others is, I was wrong. When the human ego begins to grow out of control, human beings become less and less able to admit or acknowledge when they have been wrong. When the ego goes out of control, and that's what Satanism is. And when the ego goes out of control, people are less and less able to admit they have condoned the immoral behavior of others. These are people who think, I'm proud of the order followers in the police and military. They protect us. No, you're condoning immoral behavior. If you even think government should exist, you're condoning immoral behavior. You don't even understand what you're advocating for philosophically if you're that dumb. The very first stage of shadow work, acknowledgement, is all about working upon ourselves with brutally honest introspection, so that we can acknowledge to ourselves the ways in which we have been wrong. And you know what, folks? People want to say anything they want to say about me, how I speak, what I say, how harsh I am. I've done this work over and over and over and over and over again endlessly. Still do it today. Most people have never even engaged it for a microsecond of their worthless, miserable fucking lives. That's the truth of the matter. They can't admit that they're wrong because their ego's in the way. And they think they know when they don't. They need a lot more study. They need a lot more humbleness and humility. And they need a lot more saying, I was wrong, to themselves, in the mirror, during shadow work, and to other people. To admit that you were wrong is to declare that you are wiser now than you were before. And this is all I did every day for years coming out of Satanism. And not to say that I don't need to admit that I'm wrong sometimes now. But you know what? It's a lot easier to say I was wrong because I've done that previous shadow work. Most people have never done it a second in their lives, and they can't say the words I was wrong. And that's what's going to keep you stagnant. That's what is going to keep you not evolving. That's what's going to keep slavery in place. That's what's going to lead to further total degradation and destruction. Bank on it. I told people how bad things were going to get before COVID happened, and then it happened, and everybody was like, oh, he was telling people he was prophetic. No, I was seeing the handwriting on the wall of where human consciousness was leading us because it was in a state of trash condition. And it's no better now than it was then, and it's going to get worse. Unless and until we learn how to do this work on ourselves and then teach other people to do it.